What's up, guys? Today I'll be doing a review of episode 1 of the new Total Drama Island, the 2023 edition. So a while ago I put up a poll and I asked if you guys wanted to see me do a review on this series, and I got a lot of votes and majority of you guys said yes. So I'll be making a review on this season. And sorry I couldn't upload this sooner, but from here on out I'll try to be more consistent with the uploads. Anyway, with that, let's get right into the video. Hope you enjoy. Spoiler alert, there will be a lot of spoilers in this video, and if you haven't watched the new season, or the first episode should I say, I would click off this video now. So it starts off with Chris telling us what's new about the island. We're back at Wawanakwa, which I don't think was explained, but I like how they were clear about it being a reboot. They said it a couple times, so it was definitely a reboot, and they said it up front, and they didn't try to hide it or pick up from where they last left off on the last season. But the main thing I want to talk about here is Chris has a new voice actor, which is Terry McGurran, who is the voice of Don from Darkness Race, and it is no longer Christian Potenza. But a lot of people are mad about this, and I would still rather have Chris's old voice, but I do want to say and give props to Terry McGurran for being able to play Chris the way he did, because even though he's not the old voice in the original voice that we're used to, he carried on Chris's legacy pretty well, and I think that we should definitely give him some props and credit for how he was able to play Chris's character. So we got a new intro, and a lot of people don't like it. Now, I don't love it, but I don't hate it. But I think if you haven't heard it, I'll just let you hear it for yourselves. So here you go. Hey, what's up? I'm here to slay. Don't know why the rest even bother to stay. I know the game and I brought the skill. Crushing players' dreams, yeah, you know the drill. So this is the new intro for the new season, and like I said before, I don't love it and I don't hate it, and I would have definitely preferred the old intro, but I can't judge it too much because it could have definitely been worse. But let's just move on to the next part of the episode. So the next part of the episode was introductions, and the first character I'm going to talk about is Millie, and I didn't like her from the trailers, but I'm going to talk to you guys about these episodes as if I've never seen them before, because I've watched the whole season. But Millie, I didn't really like her. She seemed boring to me. A lot of people liked her, but she just didn't seem too interesting to me. But I still gave her the benefit of the doubt and thought she might get better. But from her introduction, she wasn't the greatest character, but she wasn't the worst in my eyes. So she definitely was better than I thought she would be, but she wasn't great or one of my favorite characters of the season. The next character I'm going to talk about is Axel, and she wasn't in the trailers too much, so I didn't have an opinion from those, but I did like her design, so I did like her already. And then after she was introduced here, she became my favorite character of the series. Now you might hear that a couple times throughout the video, but I really like the way that they handled her in this episode. They had a really cool zombie concept going for her, like Sean from Pockettail Island, and I thought that was pretty cool. But that's all I'm going to say on her for now. The next character that was introduced was Priya, and I'm not going to lie, she was completely different from how I imagined her. I thought she was going to be a lovable, dumb character like Lindsay, but I couldn't have been more wrong. She's actually really smart and really physically capable, because her parents have been training her since she was a baby, told if there was ever a reboot of the show, she would be on it. And I think that they handled this concept really well with this character, and I thought this was a pretty unique idea to have for a character, especially with it being a reboot and all, and they exceeded all my expectations. Honestly, my first thoughts on Z was that he was just a pretty chill and cool guy, and he was pretty funny too, but that's all I have to say on him. A lot of people don't like Ripper, and personally I can't see why, because I don't think he's a bad character, Now, he wasn't one of my favorites, but he wasn't my least favorite, if you know what I'm saying. From his introduction, I just thought he was a cool and funny character that reminded me of Owen because he fired a lot. The next character that was introduced was Damien, and here's where we find out that he has never seen the show before, meaning he is clueless to everything Total Drama is about, and I couldn't wait to see what they would do with this character from here. Next, we meet Scary Girl, whose actual name is Lauren, and we find out that she's on the show just to see her fellow competitors get really hurt. So from this introduction, I was not a big fan of hers. Next up is Bowie, and he's Total Drama's first openly gay contestant. We knew that there would be 2 LGBTQ characters, but only one was revealed in this episode, which was Bowie. I was skeptical on how they were going to approach this character, but they ended up handling it really well. He was open about being gay and didn't care what nobody thought, and he was also a really competitive player, which made me kind of root for him. The next character that was introduced was Chase, and he was a YouTuber who does crazy stunts for videos. Honestly, I wasn't a big fan, but I was interested when he said he was dumped by a girl who ended up being another contestant in the show. Then I was intrigued. Next, we were introduced to Emma, who turns out to be Chase's ex-girlfriend. Now, she tries to take a swing at Chase when she sees him, but Chris stops her. Now, just like Bowie, here, I was interested and I couldn't wait to see how this played out. The next character we meet is MK, and she talks about how being strong isn't the way to win Total Drama. She says how she's always underestimated and that will help her fly under the radar in the game. But we also find out that she's a thief as she steals some guy's wallet in her audition tape. Next up, we meet Caleb, who was immediately fiended over upon his arrival. Honestly, I didn't have that many thoughts on the character considering he wasn't shown too much during the trailers and he wasn't shown too much here. The only thing we really know about him is that everybody thinks he's a really good looking guy, and he kind of reminded me of a nicer Justin. Next up, we meet Wayne and Raj, and here's where we find out that they play for the same hockey team. Honestly, my first thoughts on these characters are that they seem like jerks because they made fun of the others, mainly Ripper. The next character we're introduced to is Nichelle, and here's where they tell us that she's actually an actress. She must be popular because almost everyone knows who she is. I didn't have any thoughts on her yet. The last character we're introduced to is Julia, who was revealed to be an influencer. Honestly, she reminded me a lot of Dawn if she was an influencer, so I had big hopes for this character. Now that everyone's here, Chris explains the rules of the game to everyone before we get to learn more about the new cast. In this scene, we have Priya trying to find a bunk to sleep on while her new bunkmates start waiting around, aka Axel and Scary Girl. But she does find Millie sane and she starts to bond with her. I like Priya's interaction with the other girls and I was excited to see how they would interact in the future. In this scene, we just have Ripper trying to fight Z and show his superiority, but Z just walks away and it kind of ends there. So I don't really have any thoughts on this scene, so we could just move on to the next one. In this next scene, we have Wayne making a comment about the hotties on their team as Raj agrees. In this next scene, we have Julia preparing some flowers as MK shows us her thief side and steals a necklace and phone out of Julie's back pocket. In this next scene, we have Emma conversating with Bowie about how much she dislikes Chase. She also tells us that if she wins the $1 million, she's going to donate half of it to an animal charity. In this scene, we had Bowie talking about strategies like friendships and alliances. I really liked how he was already talking about strategies and was excited to see how he would use these strategies in the future. Here's where the challenge starts, and it seems to be an obstacle course. Then Chris explains how 2 team members from each team will be blindfolded and linked together and will have to race through the obstacle course to grab 2 buckets of chum from the other side. Then they'll have to race back through the obstacle course and get back to their team's pulley device, and 4 team members from that team will pull the buckets of chum up to the top, where there'll be 2 more team members giving directions to the blindfolded team members. Here we find out Millie's sole purpose for being on the island is to find and record dumb things and experiences about her generation, aka Gen Z. Then when she gets home, she turned into a novel. Honestly, at the time, I didn't understand why they would do this. For the frogs, Bowie and Emma were chosen to give directions for their blindfolded team members, which end up being Nichelle and Wayne. And for the trout, Damien and Millie would give directions to Chase and Ripper. Ripper starts off the obstacle course by making a very stupid move, getting him and Chase caught in a lobster trap. Then after removing a lobster from his rear end, it tore his pants, and then he was showing a full moon, as Bowie called it. Avoiding most of the traps at this point, the frogs are still behind, somehow, and Millie seems to be the only one helping while Damien just panics a lot. Wayne then takes a very crushing blow to the coconuts, but he's wearing a cup, so it's all fine. Millie warns Ripper and Chase about the mud trap, but they decide to walk right through it, and somehow this works. Here we find out the reason Emma doesn't like Chase and broke up with him was because he took the brakes off of her car as a prank, and she ended up crashing into a pet store, which is why she wants to donate half of her winnings to a pet charity. Now Ripper and Chase get their chum buckets back to their pulley device, and their team starts pulling. In a last-ditch effort to win the challenge, Wayne tells Nichelle to get on his back because he's a piggyback champion, which we are told by Raj that is actually true. Then, Emma, infatuated by wanting to beat Chase, she tells Wayne to jump over the hot coals, which doesn't end up working out, and him and Nichelle get burned. While all this is happening, the Trouts still keep going with the challenge, and they end up winning it, and I'm super proud of them, and I couldn't wait to see how they would work together in the future. Then we get to see a new thing that they're doing, where the contestants of the losing team are walking to the elimination ceremony with some rather dramatic music playing in the background. Now we've come to the elimination ceremony, where a chef tells everyone what they did wrong and why they would be on the chopping block. Chris then starts handing out marshmallows until it's only Caleb and Emma left. Then Chris gives the last marshmallow to Emma, making Caleb the first boot of the season. We get to see the new elimination device, which is called the Drone of Despair, and honestly, I didn't know why Caleb was going home, because he didn't do anything wrong, and Emma definitely deserved to go home. Then we find out that Bowie was the one who convinced everyone to vote for Caleb because he was a threat, and this might be their only chance to vote him out. And with that, the first episode of the Total Drama Reboot is over, and honestly, I really liked it. It had a lot of funny moments, and I really liked the way they decided to reboot the series. I still don't think it should have been Caleb going home, and that Emma probably should have been the one who was eliminated, but I was excited to see how Bowie planned to eliminate other contestants now that we know that he's a villain. Anyway, my overall rating for this episode was an 8 out of 10. It was super great, and I really liked the way that the characters interacted with each other. I also liked the way that they handled the characters in this episode, so I was super excited, and I think that this was a great way to reboot the series. Well, that's the end of the video. Thanks for watching, and I will try to get these out more consistently, but I've been working on a project, and it is a pretty big project. I'll be revealing it on the channel soon, so keep an eye out for anything that looks different from my usual post. But with that, I'll see you guys in the next video.